you very much. You may be seated, please.
This is the fourth ministerial briefing organized by the Ministry of Information. This time, it is a turn of the Ministry of Power.
We have the DG, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria.
The briefing is aimed at giving updates to Nigerians on the current happenings in different sectors of the country.
To ensure that we transform.
The briefing by the Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu, wouldn't have come at a better time, following the uproar on the recent electricity tariff hike. The organizer and Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, explains that misconceptions and concerns around the tariff review are understandable and pleaded with Nigerians to be patient with the administration.
But what I will tell you is that please let us have an open mind to hear from the Honorable Minister himself. What is it that he has to say about this? If there are clarifications, of course, he has come with the Executive Vice Chairman, like I said earlier, of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to answer some technical questions if there are.
The Minister of Power gives reasons why subsidy was partially removed from the power sector. He insists customers on the other bands, aside Band A, will continue to enjoy government subsidy.
We want the consumers to have value for their money. That is the essence of this. And it is better that we start this journey now so that we can conclude it on time. Because the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step in the right direction. This one is in the right direction, and we want you to display the understanding that we deserve.
In the meantime, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, is wielding the big stick over the Abuja Electricity Distribution PLC, AEDC, to the tune of 200 million naira for tariff violations.
The fine, of course, when it is paid, is going to the Rural Electrification Fund in line with the provision of the Act. It doesn't belong to the Commission, and there is a wisdom in that, so that we don't turn ourselves to revenue-generating agents because we don't want to improve our own personal liquidity.
For many Nigerians, the hike in electricity tariff may have come to stay. They, however, expect the government to match actions with promises made, as this would douse the tension and anxiety already created by the hike.
Okay, yes, indeed. So that is still the thing. Of course, it will be for a while because, I mean, if I can only use that if at the moment, if the tariff stays, which many think is come to stay, because you know you have to pay for as long as possible, maybe until March 2025, who knows? So it will be a big issue. So we've got two gentlemen joining us at this point to weigh in on this subject matter. We've got Dr. Ayodele Oni. He is an energy law and policy professional. He joins us virtually. And then we also have Dafe Akpenaye, who is a Commissioner, Legal, Licensing and Compliance of NERC here in the studios. Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I know you know that when this came out, many, of course, were first not happy at all with that announcement because they've got to pay a lot more. And then there were issues about how the NERC went about it. Some parts of the NERC's argument didn't quite sit with several people, and the story goes. But now, at the moment, this decision, according to the NERC, is come to stay. So yes, notwithstanding the pressers that the NERC has, there's still lots of reaction about all of this now. So what is the latest thinking for the Commission in terms of how many still don't buy the arguments of the points, if I could use that word, that the NERC has put out there?
Okay, it's not about, we're not trying to sell points. The Commission is designed to carry out a statutory responsibility in that as a regulator, we see this sector, we have a holistic view of the sector end to end. And we need to cater for all the players. And the players go from most important being the customer and the producers of that product. So the Commission stands in the middle to ensure that the product the customers want can get to them. We've been having this discussion about cost-effective tariff for a very long time. And it's become a very sensitive issue. And when you look at the power sector, it's a unique industry in the sense that, first of all, you're operating end-to-end with a lot of factors that are not within your control. You have gas producers, you have generators, you have a transmission company, you have discos, and you have consumers. And this product cannot be stored. So the minute it's generated at one end, it gets to the customers at the other end. And there's a significant cost towards making this product available. I would dare say Nigeria, from a demographic standpoint, as we sit today, from the standpoint of potentiality, we have the potential for being the largest untapped power market in Africa and perhaps the world. Because when you look at our demographics, in about 20, 30 years' time, in our lifetime, Nigeria is going to become the third most populous country in the world. And you look at the demographics, you're going to have a burgeoning, most of that is going to be young people, right, under 30. Power is critical to determining the kind of country we will be when we become the third most populous country in the world. And there's a cost to bringing 1 kilowatt of power onto the grid.
But at the moment,
right?
they are not the ones who are directly affected by this. The NERC says it's band A.
It gets back to the question you asked me. A few years ago, you would recall that tariff reviews used to be blanket across board, whereby on the basis of the macroeconomic variables at a certain point in time, we would do the reviews and it applied to all customers equally. And then we were using an old scheme, R1 and C2, things like that. And we had consultations. And Nigerians said, look, we will pay for power when we get it. We're only going to pay for power when it is there. That created a need to come up with the service-based tariff, introduce a service-based tariff whereby there was a customer segmentation based on investments that had been made. So the service-based tariff regime isn't discriminatory, but it's a regime that looks at, okay, in this part of town, because investments have been made, you have access to better service. In this part of town that requires more investments, they do not get as much service as the side where investment needs to be done. How do you get both sides to enjoy the same amount of service? That comes with more investments. And the only way you're going to allow these investments to be made is by ensuring that if I come in and I do the work that is required, I can make my money back. Because it's not a charity, right? So, and the investment has a cost. So anyone who's going to make that investment will say, okay, how am I going to get a return?
Is there data? Is this data you refer to, the consultation, how you came about band A, is it available to the public?
Of course. It's
how you
everything.
Choose who is in band A, who
no,
is in band
we
B.
don't choose who's in band A and band B. I think we need to be careful.
How did you arrive at those who are in band A and band B, band C, D,
we need to be careful with our words. We didn't put people in bands.
Yeah, so how did you arrive at that? So
the bands were done based on service levels, right? So telecoms. When telecoms was introduced in 2001, initial investments were made and rollout based on a rollout plan. The first places you had was Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, then Kano, based on where they could readily roll out those investments. They didn't come to my village in Abraka until later down the line.
Everybody still pays the same thing?
On the basis, I beg your pardon?
Everybody still pays the same thing with telecoms, wherever they are, whatever service you get.
So with telecoms, okay, even with power, right, regardless of the banding of customers are going to always pay the same thing because you have customers that use power for different purposes.
Maybe that's a difference.
Right?
I just wanted to find out, how the NERC came up with that band, because, we're trying to access those data.
It's a service band, right? So we looked at on the basis of investments that we made, there are certain parts that utilities are able to provide 20 to 24 hours of supply on a daily basis, right? And there are certain parts that investments haven't been made that is basically no supply.
All right, Dr. Ayodele Oni is also on the program. Good morning, Dr. Oni, and thank you for joining us on the program. Yes, you also have heard this announcement, like everybody else. In terms of what the NERC's perspective is, what is yours?
Okay, I think it's a good idea, generally speaking, but the devil is in the detail. There are a number of gray areas. For example, there was a publication by NERC stating that if they cannot meet that service level of 20 hours for 7 days consecutively, then it will then become a band B. It's feeder based, right? And Dafe can correct me if that's wrong. It's feeder based. So if it then means that there's an incentive for the disco, if that publication, if my understanding is correct, that if they don't meet the service levels for 7 days, that's 20 hours for 7 days, then they'll be degraded to band B. That means a disco just needs to meet that once in 7 days. That's an area that is gray for me. Another area that is gray for me is that there are feeders that maybe do 20 hours, but they have local transformer issues. I've heard people say, I share transformers with people on feeder A, but I'm really band C, or guys that are band A, but I share transformers and I get 5 hours, but yeah, the feeder can do 20 hours. I haven't seen sufficient clarity around those issues. And I've also had conversations with a few people who live abroad, and some have argued that what they pay is half of that 225 when you convert it to Naira. Those are gray areas I think they need to deal with. But in terms of the idea, the concept does make sense. I understand that subsidies increased by 2,900% to about 240 billion per month from 8 billion. Maybe government can't afford it. Maybe we really should pay for the quality of service we get. But those areas that appear gray need to be explained. And I think NERC needs to do more publicity so that people truly understand what the issues are and there aren't assumptions. Those are my initial thoughts.
So when you say service-based,
yes,
we also have people who have called in saying, look, for areas where they thought that because they fell into over 20 hours supply, for 3 days now, there's been no supply in that area whatsoever. So for those kind of people now, since it's service-based, what bandwidth will be on? Okay,
good. A lot of thought went into releasing the order, into the order itself. And we've learned from the lessons of the past, whereby before the order was issued, we had to confirm the performance of the feeders. And we did that over a sustained period of time. And we confirmed at the point that only 481 feeders in the country could provide a Band A service.
481 feeders?
Yes, could provide a Band A service.
Out of how many?
I think over 3,000 or so could provide a Band A service. So there was a degrading of and reduction of the number of Band A feeders in the country. And the order now goes on to say that where a customer who is a Band A customer doesn't get Band A supply for 48 hours, the utility has a responsibility to explain, and pretty much going to what Dr. Oni was saying, we have a local problem, and we have a team who's working on resolving that problem. If that problem isn't able to be resolved in 7 days, and you've gone on for 7 days without enjoying a Band A service, you will be downgraded to the band of service that the DISCO could provide. So if they could only provide a Band C service for that period, you don't just downgrade next to B, you downgrade to the actual service that you enjoyed. And to address that, we now said, okay, because we've looked at, okay, what would the issues be, right? There are local issues, there are communication issues. So DISCOs now have a mandate to ensure that you have on-the-ground resolution teams, that when a complaint is made, when that call is made to a customer, they're coming to your area to fix that transformer, to replace a fuse, to do the work that needs to be done to resolve that issue, right? Because the customer is paying, we're pretty much going by, you're paying for cost, and if I'm paying for cost, right, there are certain benefits that should come, and I should hold you accountable across the value chain. So with that in mind, right, there's a communication element to say, okay, this is why you've not gotten service, right? Other communication element is they are mandated on a weekly basis to do a publication of the actual performance of the feeders. And before coming, whilst I was in waiting room,
where are they publishing it? In the papers?
Papers and the website, right? Whereby Kaduna Disco published that these are band A feeders, right? We did 24 on this, 20 hours on this, 18 hours on that. And
are they verifiable?
Yes, they're verifiable.
That you can forge?
No. It's verifiable. So we have at the Commission what's called a situation room, whereby we are monitoring the feeders on a daily basis along with the discos. So we know the amount, what's getting into those feeders at the back end. So we want that transparency and to hold them accountable for that. And what it actually does...
Why do they have to wait for 7 days?
To do what?
You said if you wait for 7 days and you don't get the supply, then...
No. It's 7 days for a downgrade, right? It's 24 hours. Within 24 hours, they must notify you that you have a local problem, right? This is what we're doing to resolve the problem. Now, there are certain issues that can be resolved quickly, right? Sometimes, if it's an issue that requires then replacing the transformer, right? It takes time for a transformer to be taken out. You bring a new transformer in, the oil needs to soak and things like that. But the customer should be aware why we have this problem. And if you're unable to resolve it in 7 days, you have to downgrade that customer because you can no longer, you committed to providing a band A service, you can no longer provide a band A service in this jurisdiction, so the customer shouldn't be made to pay a band A tariff any longer in that area.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering how that is going to work, because as I'm sure, as you've rightly hit the nail on the head, there are many, many issues. You've narrowed them down to 2. One of them is communication. Yes. And I think underneath communication is trust.
Yes.
Trust and sincerity.
Yes.
A lot of people do not trust that their discos can provide the service that they need when they need it, and also be trusted to communicate promptly. I think that's been a major problem. Whenever it is there's an outage, people are usually wondering, they're left to wonder, you know, until maybe somebody decides to walk to the distribution office. In Abuja, it's AEDC. Yes. But right now, as you said if there's a situation and maybe within 24 hours service is not provided, the communication is not done, or that it's going to take longer, or it takes longer, you know, they will be downgraded. The question is, how does that happen? Because the tariff has already been, not the tariff, the units have already been purchased at a certain value. So how do you then downgrade that to band B, for instance?
Okay, so there are 2 elements here. The first is, 1, which you rightly said, issue of communication, right? 1, the customer should know what's going on. The utility should know that I'm under an obligation to provide this service and I have not provided it, right? Third element now is consequence management, right? Before, under the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, there were limitations on consequence management. But under the Electricity Act, that's been taken away because the Commission now has the full powers under the law to sanction. That there's a regulatory requirement for you to do this. You have this obligation to the customer. It's been proven that you haven't met this obligation, and certain consequences will follow. And we saw that only last week with AEDC.
Yes, but the sanction was to AEDC. I mean, who's going to be paying 200 million naira to who? Is it NERC or to the federal government?
Not to NERC. So under the Electricity Act, all fines imposed by the Commission go into the Rural Electrification Fund that is used for rural electrification projects by REA.
So it goes into the Rural Electrification Fund, but it has no benefits to the consumer.
So, yes, no. So there are two things, right? Not the benefit to the consumer is that there's a sanction on deterrence to the operator.
I don't want sanction, doctor. I want my money back.
I want my money back.
I don't want
That's
sanction.
what a lot of people want. If you say that they're being downgraded to Band B, for instance, maybe you live in an estate, you haven't had... And Band B, I think they're mandated to provide at least 18 hours. Isn't that correct?
No, so Band B is from 16 to 20.
16 to 20. So they're mandated to provide, which is not too bad. I mean, from 20 hours.
Yes,
so if you're being downgraded, the money certainly is different because Band A customers now are being charged ×3.
So the same principle applies, that what you vended, so if it happened in a short window, right, what you vended, so like Wichita was using the Abuja example, right, whereby you had Band B, Band C, and other bands of customers who went to vend, let's say, 10,000, 20,000 naira, and you assessed a Band A rate for them. With that downgrade, you had an obligation to refund the tokens. And Abuja has set up a portal where you can do that. So with the enforcement mechanism now, where the customer cannot get that service and you downgrade, and the person still has units that he hasn't used, and you look at the timing, there's an opportunity to say, okay, when at this point in time I vended, right? I vended 50,000 last week. You couldn't provide this service. Yes, there's an obligation on the utility to say, okay, because he's a Band B customer, right, or a Band C customer, and these are the value of tokens he would have gotten, right? Within that window, the balance of what has been consumed, he gets that back in tokens for the services enjoying at the point in time.
Are you going to be mandating the distribution companies to have a certain level of communication that there must be? For instance, we know now that the CBN, which regulates the banks, they also keep tabs on how it is that they attend to customers. If you have any complaints and it's not being handled, you can escalate it.
Yeah.
But the banks, we also know, have also improved greatly in terms of how I don't have to leave my house, for instance, as a consumer of banking services to get whatever it is I want to attended to. But it's not exactly the same thing with distribution companies. Distribution companies have not exactly made it very easy to be communicated with. Are these some of the things that NERC is going to be mandating them to do, given the service level or the tariff increment, and also this, we're supposed to be on a service level agreement. This is supposed to be part of service, isn't it? Is this something that NERC is going to be mandating the distribution companies
Of course.
to do?
So there's a communication element in the mandate that has been issued to the utilities. In that, one, you must tell the customers, the customers know what is going on, right? And for a while, they've been mandated to have what they call customer care centers, whereby you can go and lodge complaints and they address the complaints. But for greater transparency on monitoring the current framework we are now, right? Not only are you meant to treat the customer better, you're also meant to self-report and have transparency whereby you publish that this is what we have done on these feeders, right? And where you've not done that, you're held accountable.
We're starting with keeping tabs. I want to ask Dr. Ayo Tunde, do you feel a certain level of comfort with the explanation that NERC has given so far in terms of what will happen if, the terms and conditions of the service level agreements are not met?
Yeah, I do have some comfort, but I still think there are practical challenges. All a disco needs to do is to manage their network. Every 7 days you have issues. You end up not having 20 hours for more than 2 days. next month, for those days, you have challenges again. They can just move you along with Dafe's explanation. Communication, all of that, it needs to take 7 days before they downgrade it. That means by day 5, they resolve it. You don't have light for 5 days. Day 6, they resolve it. Next week, you have another issue. Day 4, they resolve it. That means it doesn't seem to really solve the problem. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think NERC has been doing excellently well, to be honest, and I'm one of those who praise their effort. But I think that those practical issues still exist. And that of transformers, I'm on the same feeder that is, and remember, unless Dafe wants to say it's not the case, it's feeder-based. It's not local, it's feeder-based. So if my transformer is almost always problematic and I end up having only 5 hours, but if that gives me 20 hours, I do not still have sufficient comfort that I will be enjoying band A services, although I am paying band A. So I think even with his explanation, that practical challenge remains, because it says it has to take 7 days of not getting 20 hours before you're downgraded. So they do it after 6 days, next month again, or the next week, 4 days there's a problem, they do it on the 5th day. They've not made it, they've not failed on the 7th day.
Okay, let me take that to him. Let me take that to him, which is a problem that many places experience. And it's a problem that could rear its head in the rainy season. We know how storms, usually come and, places are out, transformers are down. So what happens where there's a local problem, where the feeder is providing the service, but the local transformers are not transmitting that? What happens?
Okay, so first, before I go to the question, I must address what Dr. Oni said about a deliberate gaming of the system, right? I'm a customer of 2 discos, Lagos and in Abuja. In Abuja, I've been a Band A customer for 7 years because the level of supply has been Band A supply. I have a lot of people I discuss with who, at the time I took on this job, they were not Band A customers. But they've told me that, Daffy, service has improved. I'm now a Band A customer. I've been a Band A customer for X number of years or this period. So on the basis of empirical evidence and precedents, there's no incentive to start gaming and chopping, because the service has been there, right? And how you enjoy the service is on the basis of investment. Electrons flow and they follow the path of least resistance. So no one is going to say, okay, let us make this place Band A now and not make it Band B, make it Band B later after the customers have paid us, when there's a consequence management to that effect. On the issue of local issues, yes, which is why we've said that there's a communication element to this, right? And the discos need to be responsive in addressing local issues. They need to have their teams being dispatched, those people with the haylocks and the ladders, going out to the streets to resolve the local issues customers face. Then you now have issues that we could call acts of God, on the basis of, in Abuja, when it starts raining and those storms start, power has to go out, right? And trees would fall, take out some power lines, and those are circumstances that you would call an act of God, right? That the utility at that point in time cannot provide the service because of circumstances beyond its control. Now, what's going to be the expectation? First of all, comes back to you have a responsibility to let the customers know that, one, this Dawaki feeder, right? A tree fell across the road, taking out the conductors and X number of substations, right? It is going to take us X period of time to fix the problem, right? In that window, the customers get downgraded to an appropriate band if you cannot resolve the problem within that window, right? But when you're able to now get to a level whereby you can provide adequate supply, the customers pay at the appropriate rate.
You know, in spite of all of this, bottom line for the customer, if you don't pay, you don't get service. But now listen to all of this, it just appears as though there are several reasons why a disco will tell you why you can't get supply, even though you're paying for band A. Because this morning I got calls from people who said, look, we're supposed to be in this so-called band A. For 3 consecutive days, they vended no supply whatsoever. So these things happen. They have already paid. So when you say, yes, we'll pay if we have service, these things don't appear as though, you know, because for them, they don't have supply, period. But let's not allow, ask his own questions. So he's got questions for both of you as well. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Quite a number of things have been said, but let me begin with Dr. Joe. Do you think, I mean, even though Mr. Akweneye has made some explanation earlier, do you think we have a sufficient way of measuring supply? Do you think the NRC has a reliable system of measuring supply? Because if they do, I would expect that it shouldn't even last up to 24 hours before they will notify a particular disco that, guy, you've not supplied what you promised that you're going to supply. So taking up to 6 days and then 7 days and all might be an issue. Do you think we have a system of monitoring electricity supply real time? Dr. Ojo.
Answer that question. I think to an extent, I understand that they've invested in some technology that can help them monitor, but I'm not sure that it's 100% done now. And well, I'm not sure.
I apologize, Dr. Joe. I can't hear you, but I'm pretty sure it's something that maybe from your side or from our side, I don't know. But let me come back to you, Mr. Akweneye, while we're dealing with that one. One of the issues that a number of people would want to take you up on is whether or not, first of all, how does your agency, your commission respond to the opinion of the FCCPC, which is saying that discos repeatedly fail to meet the minimum power supply hours for respective tariff bands, and their failure over time to compensate customers for service downtime and have made consumer grievances worse. So they are saying that unless electricity customers are metered by discos, it'll be difficult to implement this new tariff hike. What's your take on that one, Mr. Akweneye?
Okay, yes. Revenue assurance is a critical element for the sector, and it's important that all customers should be metered. But we find ourselves in a situation whereby we have a metering gap, and there's work being done to close out the metering gap. What the Commission has done, and what we've said as we move towards this new cost-reflective tariff, is because we appreciate the fact that a certain customer band has been mandated to pay the actual cost-reflective tariff, we've prioritized the metering of those customers in that band, that all customers in that band should be metered. So about 70% of the customer population in band A now are metered, 30% remain unmetered. And we've issued directive to the discos that you must work out closing that metering gap, so we do not have unmetered band A customers. So work is being done. So you must prioritize the metering of band A customers. And the metering of other customers as well. Work is being done to ensure that we close out the metering gap. These are things that it costs a lot of money. And the sector has been bleeding because we've not been able to charge a cost-reflective tariff across board. And that has stalled investments coming into the sector. A lot of the investments we see, which a lot tend to be Dr. Oni's clients, are people who are coming to provide off-grid solutions to manufacturers, saying that, okay, I know that if I put in place an off-grid solution in this place, right, I can charge the cost and get paid. And I'm dealing with this person on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. So a lot of the manufacturing endeavors are off the grid as we speak today. And if you look at the plants in Alausa, most of the bottlers have installed capacity with built-in redundancy to power the whole of Alausa. You understand? So we need to do the work that is required to ensure we bring confidence back into the sector. And the only way that can be done is ensuring an investor that, one, I'm an investor-friendly climate, and two, there's an opportunity to recoup my investment when it is made. When
I got people asking, the commission has said that I think AEDC was supposed to refund some customers some money. What's going on with that?
No, we said when the order was issued, the tariff banding on the vending platform was only supposed to apply to Band A customers. AEDC went ahead and applied it across bands A to E in contravention of the order. So what the commission has said is, for bands B to E customers that vended,
B to E,
yeah, that vended, you must refund the tokens that they would have gotten at the existing rate, which is the old rate for those customer bands.
They must refund it? The
tokens, yes.
Have they been refunded?
They are refunding it now, and if you check, there's a platform, they set up a platform whereby you put in your meter number, you get to see what band you fall into, and the balance of tokens that you are entitled to receive on the platform. So AEDC has complied with that.
Okay, Mr. Oni, just give us your closing thoughts. Apologies on that mix-up there, but you were talking about the capacity of the NERC. So could you go ahead and conclude on that one just before we wrap up?
I think the NERC is doing generally a brilliant job, particularly when it comes to regulations. My challenge has always been implementation. And I always say the devil is in the detail. I understand and his question was around being able to track. I understand that NERC has invested in some technology that can do that, but that technology is not available to the public. I don't know if DAFE can provide some clarity on that. So generally speaking, I think it's some of these policies are the right policies. Maybe they're coming in large numbers, so there'll be some pushback, and of course the effects may initially be adverse because of course macroeconomic factors have changed. Consumer price index, gas pricing, all of those, even USD, the exchange rate, all of those have changed. So I do not think it's necessarily a bad policy. I think it's actually a brilliant policy, and I think some thought has been put to it. But those gray areas, NERC still does need to do much more around those. And then I think I pay much more. DAFE knows I lived abroad for a short while a few years ago, and it looks like I'm paying double or almost triple what I was paying when I lived abroad. That's another thing. Should it be more expensive than what we have in the US, what we have in Canada?
All right, Dr.
That's something else they need to deal with. Thank you.
So there you go. Yeah, to say they're doing an excellent job. So how is that excellent if you're paying ×3 of the job and you're not getting? Several people think that, look, if they pay for service and they don't get it, they cannot say it's a good job that is being done, because there's no.
In some areas they are doing well.
You get. If you don't pay, you don't get a service charter. So to a lot of people, that's the way it's coming across. But that's how much time.
I wish we could get a quick response for that. Is there a reason why we're paying so much more?
Okay, so first of all, I do not agree that we're paying much more. Our power remains one of the cheapest on the African continent. You can check that. That is empirical data that is available. The rates in Nigeria are cheaper than in almost any other African country. And Ayo alluded to his lived abroad. I know Ayo lived in Canada. It has a lot of hydro resources. Hydro is generally cheaper. Then also, we must address this.
It's 10 o'clock, pardon me. Sorry,
okay.
We need to move on. We have another segment coming up. Apologies on that one.
No problem.
So we have to thank both of you for coming on. Dr. Ayodele Oni is an energy law and policy professional. We also have DAFE Akpene, who is a commissioner, legal compliance for NERC. Thank you both for coming on this morning.